Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Honorable Ma'am Rini, as the lecturer of Classroom Action Research, and all my beloved friends. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present my research proposal. My name is Nida Fatiha, with my student number is 061. And today I would like to present my purpose study entitled The Use of Comic Strips to Improve Students' Writing Skill in Narrative Text, a Classroom Action Research, and the 10th grade student of SMA Negeri 1 Tenggaran. Let me begin with the background of the study. Writing is considered one of the most challenging language skills for EFL learners. Unlike speaking, students cannot express ideas spontaneously when writing. They need to think about the content, organize their ideas logically, choose appropriate vocabulary, and apply correct grammar at the same time. So, based on preliminary observation and discussion with the English teacher, I found that many 10th grade students still experience difficulties in writing narrative text. They often struggle to generate ideas, develop storylines, organize events coherently, and use appropriate vocabulary. In addition, many students show low confidence and motivation during writing activities. This situation may be influenced by the limited use of interesting learning media in the classroom. Therefore, I believe that an engaged teaching medium is needed to help students overcome these difficulties. This leads me to the use of comic strips as a teaching medium. Comic strips combine pictures and short dialogues arranged in a sequence of events. Because narrative texts also tell stories through a sequence of events, comic strips can provide visual support that helps students understand the storyline more easily. In my opinion, comic strips can help students in three ways. First, they can stimulate students' imagination and help them generate ideas. Second, they can assist students in organizing events into a coherent narrative structure. Third, third, they can increase students' motivation because learning becomes more enjoyable and interactive. So, based on this consideration, I formulated a research question. The first research question is how can the use of comic strips improve students' writing skills in narrative text at 10th grade level? And then the second research question is how do students respond toward the implementation of comic strips in learning narrative text? In line with these questions, the objectives of this study are first, to improve student narrative text writing skill through the use of comic strips, and second, to describe students' responses toward the implementation of comic strips in narrative writing instruction. And then next, I would like to explain the theoretical foundation of this study. This research focuses on narrative text. According to the Anderson, a narrative text consists of three main components: orientation, complication, and resolution. Orientation introduces the characters, setting, and situation of the story. Complication presents the conflict or problem faced by the characters, and the last resolution explains how the conflict is solved. Furthermore, writing is viewed as a process. According to Harmer and Brown, writing involves several stages, including planning, drafting, revising, and editing. Therefore, writing requires not only linguistic knowledge but also the ability to organize ideas effectively. In this study, students' writing skill will be assessed by based on five aspects: content, organization, vocabulary, grammar, and mechanics. Moving on the research methodology. This study employs classroom-based research or CAR based on study not based on the model proposed by chemist and McTaggart. I choose classroom action research because the purpose of the study is not only to investigate a phenomenon but also to improve students' writing performance through practical classroom intervention. The classroom consists of two cycles, and each cycle includes four stages. The first stage is planning. In this stage, I prepare lesson plans, comic strips, learning materials, observation sheets, and writing tests. The second stage is acting. During this stage, I implement the teaching activities using comic strips as the main instructional medium. Students observe the comic strips, discuss the storyline, identify narrative elements, and write narrative text based on the stories presented. The third stage is observing. Here I observe students' participation, motivation, engagement, and difficulties throughout the learning process. Data are collected through observation sheets, field notes, interviews, and students' writing products. And then the final stage is reflecting. In this stage, I analyze the result obtained from the first cycle, identify strength and weakness, and make improvement for the next cycle. Regarding the participant, the study will be conducted with 10 grade students of SMA Negeri Satu Tengaran during the academic year 2026-2027. Several instruments will be used to collect data. They include pre-test and post-test to measure students' writing achievement, observation sheets to record students' participation and motivation, interviews to gather students' responses, and field notes to document classroom activities. Before concluding, I would like to briefly discuss previous studies. So, uh, previous studies conducted by Megawati and Anugrawati, Apsari, and Fauzi et al. Revealed that comic strips positively contribute to students' writing development. They help students generate ideas, organize narrative more effectively, and participate more actively during learning activities. However, most previous studies focus on general writing instruction or different education contexts. Therefore, the study attempt to contribute to the existing literature by implementing comic strips through classroom action research, specifically at the senior high school level. And then finally, uh, this study is expected to provide both theoretical and practical contribution. Theoretically, it may enrich the literature on teaching writing through visual media. Practically, it may provide teachers with an alternative teaching medium, help students improve their narrative writing skill, and serve as a useful reference for future researchers. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Uh, Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.